I am thrilled. I am excited. Welcome to the Hush No More podcast. I'm loving the reboot, the intro. I hope you guys like it too. And so we're coming to you live from the Hush No More podcast studio. And man, first of all, there's been so many things that has happened. I am now living in the Portland area, but today is going to be special. I have invited to the Hush No More podcast two amazing women, special women, who both ran for USA track and field. Like, I'm excited. I brought WNBA players to this podcast. I brought NBA players to this podcast, Harlem Globetrotters, NFL, but this is the first time we're going to have US track and field and the women, and there's two at the same time. So let's get it. Let's go. Let's first talk about Shameka Marshall, who was born in New Jersey. She ran for Rutgers University, was a two-time All-American, y'all, at Rutgers University. I've got to highlight this part. The girl jumped 21 feet, 10.25 inches. I can't even imagine what that would be like, since I can only jump about 2 feet. But Shameka jumped 21 feet for a record. She represented the U.S. track and field in the 4x100 meter relay. 2007 gold medalist in the NACAC championship. She's a silver medalist in the Pan American Games for 2011. Participated in the Olympics 2004 for the trials, 2004, 2008, 2012. Remained top 10 in the long jump for 10 straight years. I'm going to repeat that. This woman remained top 10 ranked for 10 straight years in the long jump. And we're going to get into that. But she also coached at Temple University. Let's welcome Shameka Marshall.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here.
Well, Shameka, go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, and then I'm going to bring in Georganne Moline. So go ahead, Shameka. Let us know just a little bit about you.
Yeah, so as you know, I'm from New Jersey, the Garden State, so East Coastin'. Recently moved to the West Coast, so this is very new for me, especially the weather. But in addition to that, went to Rutgers University, had a great time there, was fantastic. And truthfully, I didn't want to run in college. So I guess you'll hear more about that in a little bit. But, I thank God for the moment of surrender to where I submitted to, okay, this is the gift. Let me make sure I use it and not throw it away. So that literally changed my life.
Wow. What an opening. I love it. I can't wait to pull that apart. Like, that's a lot of meat that was on that bone. Georganne Rochelle Moline ran for the University of Arizona. She specialized in the 400 meter hurdles, won a spot on the 2012 Summer Olympics, born in Montana, world indoor champion 2018 in the 4x400 meter relay. She graduated from the University of Arizona, Pac-12 champion in the 400 meter hurdles. The list goes on and on. I just want Georganne to tell us herself who she is. Come on, Georganne. Let the people know who you are.
Thanks for having me, Leslie. I'm so excited to be here. So I started running in high school, really for the social aspect. I was not outgoing. I was always a late bloomer. I just wanted to have friends. And so I was like, well, the track team, everyone makes the track team, So I was like, what a great place to start. And then I found out that you could get scholarships to college. And that's kind of why it led me into college. And then again, you'll hear later too, but made the Olympics in college, and that led me into my pro career. So born in Montana, but lived in Arizona pretty much my entire life. I'm a desert girl, and so this move out to Oregon is for sure different, but I love it and I appreciate it for what it is. It's beautiful and green for a reason. It rains a lot, but I'm taking it all in. So I love it. I love it.
This is incredible that you began because it just seemed like it'd be fun. People would get to know who you are. And you just ended up becoming such an amazing, just achieving so many great things. So before we get into it, let's see a little bit more about who Shameka is and who Georganne is. We're going to see it for ourselves. We're going to the...
Goodness and the love of Jesus and all He's done for me. Spiritual riches unimagined, who could ever fathom? We would now receive forgiveness through His blood. Adoption because of His love through Christ, the depth of your great mercy shown to
Wow.
me. And now I have a new song of thanksgiving in my heart.
Wow. That was a surprise.
Gotcha. Got you.
Yes, you did.
So one of the things you failed to mention is that you are a recording artist.
Yeah, you're right. I did. That's like the other half of my life. It's so funny because like music people who know me don't know about my athleticism and vice versa. Those who know me in athletics, they don't know about the music side, but I am an artist and an athlete. So I dwell in the two worlds.
I actually wanted that in reverse. I wanted the first highlight because I really wanted to end by shocking you with that. But, I do think that sometimes things work out exactly as they should, because that song, I think it embodies everything that you are, that you're faithful, and that you believe that God has brought you through a lot of things. So I want you to testify real quick about your faith.
Yeah. It was age 4 or 5, I had my first encounter with God or the Holy Spirit, however you want to kind of say it. But I was in my parents' room and they were playing a song by Vanessa Bell Armstrong, and it was called Teach Me, O Lord. And so when I heard this song, I just started crying. And, as a kid, like 3 and 4 years old, you don't know what's really going on. All I know is I started crying, listening to this song, and then fast forward, jump into college. I had this encounter where I was just like being tested with, I don't know if God is real or not. College is that moment a lot of times where we make a mark in the road of whether we're going to go left or right. And so this was a moment where I was like, Lord, if I don't know anything else, I know you're real, because I remember when I was 3 or 4 years old and you encountered me. So even though I grew up in a Christian home, it doesn't stop challenges from coming your way and you being tested at that moment about your faith and how real you think He is. So I just praise God, like His divine way of having a marker like that in my life so long ago that I was going to rely on like 20 years later. I had no idea that would be the case, but I'm so glad He did.
I'm so glad it did too, because one of the things, what Hush No More stands for, I talk about faith. But there's so much difficulty that occurs in sports, and people they watch us on TV and they see us, put a gold medal in your case around your neck, and they see us, like with me in basketball, just winning and making it to the WNBA, but they don't realize how hard it is, how many times you fail, how many times you struggle, how many times you miss the mark. And I really appreciate the fact that you're not ashamed to testify that God has kept you through those difficulties.
Yeah.
Was there any particular time that you want to mention where you had to call on God because you felt like, man, I can't do it without him in this situation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when I was transitioning, I mentioned earlier about not wanting to do track in college, and I had some scholarships on the table, but I didn't care. Like, being a young person, sometimes you just don't think straight. Thank God for some good parents who kind of like, hey, you're making a bad decision here, and I still didn't want to listen. And I don't know why. I was like just so stubborn. But at that moment, I remember my mom saying, like, won't you pray about it before you make a final decision in turning down these scholarships? Because
Yes,
it could pay for college. And I had 3 older sisters. They had already gone to college and they were paying their way through. So I was like, I'll be fine. If they do it, I could do it. Why not? And so
absolutely.
when I went to pray out of obedience, so like for any youngsters on here or listening later, like obedience pays off. So like listening to my mom,
Obedience. I'm writing that
come
down.
on, obedience.
Obedience pays
Yes.
off.
Yes, it does. And it has over and over in my life. So being obedient to my mom, I went upstairs and my custom was to just like kneel by my bed and pray. So my prayer was like all of 5 seconds. Like I was like, God, I'm like track right. Like that's how I started it. And when you're young, you just kind of say what's on your mind. I'm a guess when you get
Yeah,
old. When you get older, you do too. Like I still kind of pray
yeah.
like that. But I just told him what was on my heart. And what was on my heart was, I don't want to do this. And what
Ooh,
he reminded me of was, this is a gift. And so I was like, oh, and like, you're about to bury it. And that hit me even harder. I was like,
wow.
oh, I don't want to
Mm.
bury my gift. I didn't know jumping was a gift. I didn't know track and field was a gift.
Well,
I guess,
speaking of the jump,
yeah.
I like. Let's take a look at the jump
Okay.
because that's what I wanted to start with. But it's okay. Let's reflect on what you're talking about. Let's take a look.
Shameka Marshall was a 2-time All-American in track and field. She set 6 school records in both jumps and hurdles and was inducted into the Rutgers Athletics Hall of Fame in 2017. After her time on the track, Marshall served as an assistant track coach at Temple and is now an adjunct professor in the College of Public Health. Marshall's wide range of accolades has earned her the induction as a Big Impact Pioneer Class of 2022.
You are full of surprises.
How awesome is that?
Oh my gosh. I can't believe you found that.
All right, let's talk. Let's come back to we're gonna get into your career, but let's go to Georganne.
Yeah.
Georganne. You know what? Let's see the clip. Let's see the clip on Georganne. Let's start with that. Let's see what surprise I have for her. She's like, I know you're nervous. You don't have to be. Let's take a look. Let's see what this woman is made of.
Little Mohammed, who tends to go out hard, has done so again, and has already eaten up some ground on Ginny Russell away to her right. Also going well is Georganne Moline, who had that stuttering start in Shanghai.
400-meter hurdle.
Making good and has already reeled in Pedroso to her right. But Dilema Mohammed down the back straight, still just moving through the gears, you sense. Ginny Russell.
I love
Shameka.
that.
A very, very good
She's like,
finish.
here we go. You know
Been
exactly
right back
when
to being
you
used to so far in the
walk
Diamond
them
League in
down.
2018. But Georganne Moline has gone out very, very hard indeed.
Look
In lane
at
7,
her.
Georganne Moline coming off the bend here
Get it.
with a terrific
Get
lead.
it,
What has
Georgia.
Mohammed got left? Well,
Let's go.
he looks to be tying up. Mohammed is
Oh,
coming back.
gosh.
But so
What's
is
she
Janine Russell.
holding?
Janine Russell leaves it late
What's she?
over the last barrier. It's between these three.
What's she holding?
Moline, hold on. Yes, she can. Moline, it's a
You
terrific
see
run from her.
it?
53.97, the winning time.
It still gets me nervous. I'm like, gosh, come on.
And she got her reward. And Mohammed,
Man.
the Olympic champion, fading and having to settle for third on this occasion. But Georganne Moline, make no mistake, that was an aggressive run. And she got exactly what she deserved. The first win of the season there
Oh, gosh.
for Georganne Moline.
That was awesome.
Thanks. Oh, that still makes me nervous because I'm like, she's coming. And like that feeling, the last 50 meters when you're like, that lactic sets in and you're like, I cannot feel my legs.
Oh, I want to hear more because I don't know what that is. I've never jumped over any hurdle in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So your legs begin again. Let's talk about it.
Oh, Leslie. So the 400-meter hurdles, we have 10 hurdles. And so the first half of the race, the 200, that's when the race really starts. My coach used to say, he's like, at 200, anyone can run the first two, but can you run the last two? And I'm like, let's see. So that was always like my secret sauce is like when the 200, when you hit that 200, that turn, being able to give that extra push so that it can bring you home was always like, wow, Georgianne's eating them up. I'm like, that was always my thing. Like, okay, the turn. But yeah, that last 50 meters, it really just comes down to like guts, like who wants it more? Because at that point, like everyone's fit, everyone's strong, everyone's talented at this level, but who wants it more? And what are you willing to do to get to that line, And there's been times I've fallen right at the line because my legs just completely gave out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was a special race for me for sure. Special year for me.
I mean, when you watch it, it's just so fabulous. But what is it like to just be in the winner's circle? And when you guys step on the podium, how does that feel? Can you illustrate the feeling to our audience?
Yeah, it's almost like relief. That's what I would feel. So I'm someone who I deal with a lot of anxiety and especially performance anxiety. I put a lot of pressure on myself, as I'm sure we all do as athletes. But in that moment, when you cross the finish and you just gave it everything you had, and that day was good enough, it was good enough to win because that's not always the case, right? And you have this sense of like relief and just gratitude. And one thing I've learned though too is in those moments, appreciate them, but you can't get so emotionally attached to moments, the bad ones or the good ones, because before you know it, you're on to the next one, right? So really trying to learn to soak in that moment for what it is and just know that, it's temporary, but it's super exciting. So trying to also learn to like pat myself on the back a little bit, because it's hard. I feel like I didn't always do that.
Well, let's talk about that endurance. So has there been times where because it's like, I would be exhausted. Like you had to give it all you have. Are there times that even after doing that, you had to turn around and do another race? Because there's two competitions in the same day?
So not at the pro level for the 400-meter hurdles, but when you're in college, for sure, the same day, if I'm running the 200, maybe I'm running the 400 hurdles and I'm doing the 4x4, like, yeah, you have maybe an hour, hopefully an hour in between, not always the case. But that's where your mental fortitude comes in, right? That's why training is so important, but the way that you train your mind is so important because your body is tired, and your mind will tell you your body is tired, but you kind of have to play tricks with your mind. Like, no, I'm not that tired. No, I'm good. Like, I know how to recover.
Testified a little bit about her face. So I just wanted to hear from you. What is your spiritual food? Like, how did you inspire yourself to push through those moments that, like you said, it took mental muscle to win the race?
Yeah, one thing that Meek had brought up about surrendering. So for me, I didn't grow up in the church. Like God was introduced to me really by my godparents, my nana and tata. And In the summers, I'd see them and we'd go to church. And that was like really my only understanding of God or Jesus. Like I didn't really understand, you know, but what was crazy is like later on in my life, when I went through pretty bad depression, is when I found God myself.
Wow.
I talked to him and I prayed to him during really hard times, but then I started realizing like, he's here in the good times. Like like he gave me this sense of gratitude and like trust. I had so much trust that like everything was going to work out the way that it was meant to happen for me because he'd shown me that. So I was like, okay. So in those moments, all I knew is like, all I had to do was be myself. And I didn't have to be anything more than myself.
Yes.
And however it unfolded was the way that it was meant to unfold, God's plan for me. So like, I really found a lot of, I found this like really safe, beautiful place where I just trusted in him. And so it allowed me to, like Meek said, to really just surrender myself and just be like, you know what, God, like whatever you have for me, I'm going to do whatever I can. And like the rest is in your hands. I know. So
I surrender all. I surrender all. You said something about anxiety. And Shameka, I want you to jump in on this piece as well. Okay. So did you struggle with anxiety for the race? Because I can imagine being on center stage and being nationally televised, the place is packed, that would bring anyone physical anxiety, mental anxiety. But do you think that the anxiety was something more, like an overall struggle, because there was a struggle even after sports?
Yeah, it was for me, it was a lot deeper. My anxiety started in high school. Okay, so track, I say, like saved my life. Track is what made me who I am. When I joined in high school, I had very low self-esteem. I didn't fit in. I just didn't feel like I belonged. And then when track came into my life, I finally felt like I had purpose. I finally felt like I had goals. So I bring that up because later on in my career, especially when I made the Olympics and won worlds and these things, my identity was so wrapped up in track that if I had a race that didn't go as planned, or I lost, or I fell on my face at nationals, which has happened to me, like then I felt I was a failure. I felt like I was nothing. I had no purpose. And who was I? So for me, it's a lot deeper than that. But definitely going to the line would bring me that anxiety because I was like, I need to win. I need to do this. And it was for other people. It wasn't for God, the glory of God, or for myself. I did things for like other people and what they would think of me.
Wow.
But yeah,
the
I'd love
pressure.
to hear yours, Mika. Yeah.
What about you, Mr. Mika? What did you have anxiety, or was it long lit? Like did anxiety or any like trauma from maybe failures? Did any of that follow you?
Absolutely. So my anxiety definitely started in high school as well, with track and field. And before long jump was like the main thing for me, I had to do other races. So I did 400, the open 400. I hated it. But I also started doing 100 hurdles because my coach needed another person. We were doing shuttle hurdles, which means it's 4 people. And I didn't start that till junior year. But I would get anxiety so bad, I didn't even want to compete. Like I was happy going to practice and staying in practice and never going to a meet. I didn't care if I went to a competition. Most people are the opposite. They're like, I don't want to practice, but I want to go and compete. But for me, I had so much anxiety. I remember going to one of the reverends at our church, Reverend Charlotte Edwards, love her. And she gave me one scripture, and it was like this little card, and it said, it was 2 Timothy, and it was just talking about like, fear not, for God is with you. And I would read that. I put it in my bag. So
because you had so many fears.
So much anxiety. And that was the pressure of the competition. So like Georganne mentioned, like sometimes I think great athletes, we're very hard on ourselves. We expect a lot of ourselves. And because we expect that level of ourselves, I think people start to expect that of us too, because they're like, we know you can do it. Like if anybody can do it, you can do it, So it's like even more pressure. And it was like, oh my goodness, this feels so heavy. Like you would be shaken. You can hardly calm down. You're tired before you do the race because your anxiety is so high. So one of the things I had to start learning to do was just read that scripture. And people didn't know what I was doing, but I was just over there reading it over and over again because I needed an anchor to like get my mind straight.
Speak.
Yeah, before
Speak.
I did anything. And then fast forward, it got better and better as I grew. And so once I got to like professional competitions and stuff, the anxiety I think has always still been there, like nervousness that you get, but it just wasn't as overwhelming later on. So that was really helpful. I learned to also just take a deep breath sometimes, blow it out, and then let's get after it. You know, like it's like a whole mind shift that happens. But like I said, that
What
foundational
Georganne
part,
spoke to, relief. That was the
yeah,
word she used, which is
yeah,
quite interesting.
yeah.
You know, not triumph, but relief.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
what did
true.
you
Yeah.
feel? What do you
Yeah,
think? What did you feel when you would win in competition?
yeah.
What
It
word
was.
would you use?
I would give it satisfaction. So like for me it was relief too, but satisfaction because it's like you have your mind on something that you want to achieve and you know you worked your butt off to try and make sure that you're ready for that moment. So it was like, yes, I did it finally, you know, and gratefulness. That's the other thing I would say is just feeling so
Hmm.
grateful, like, oh my God, it happened. And like you said, celebrate for that moment and it's awesome. And then you get back to it's time to get ready for the next
So
competition.
I'm curious to know about your families.
Yeah.
So where was your family at in the midst of all of this? Did you voice it to your family? Because the reason I want to
Mm,
touch on that topic is because I know that a lot of times our young kids, and when we were young, you know, we would experience these things, but we sometimes you share it to your parents, and sometimes you didn't. And I
mm,
and sometimes you keep it inside, bottle it inside, and not tell anyone that you were struggling to handle the pressure. I'm just curious to know, what is our head count today? How many
yeah.
actually spoke to their parents or family about the internal struggle?
So Meek's like, no. I talked to my mom about it. My mom is like my very best friend. But then I would see how, like, one thing that Shameka said is like how almost debilitating anxiety can be, where it's literally like paralysis of the body. I remember not being able to get out of bed. I've dropped out of meets before. I've flown all the way to Europe and dropped out of meet, 20 minutes before. I physically felt like I couldn't do it. And I would share this with my mom, and her heart would just break for me. And she felt like she felt like her hands were tied. She didn't know how to help me. So then it did lead to me not really telling her anymore, which led to a really dark place for
Whoa,
me. Yeah, because I didn't want to hurt
whoa.
her.
I appreciate the
Wow.
way you tie that in, because
Wow.
sometimes there is like a internal cry for help, and then other times we literally speak it. But then we like to cover. Love protects. Love covers. And
Mhm.
so
Yep.
when you share your hardship, but then you saw her hurt, and that just made you shut back down again. And
Yeah.
I really want to keep, because that's the whole point of Hush No More and my podcast and my company, because I want to shed light to the fact that way too many athletes are just going through, and they end up
Mm,
depressed.
yep.
Some like to say transition difficulties. Some just say, just a little bit stressed out. Some say it's trauma, but it's all the same. Like, it is hard in competition to handle the things that we go through, but it's also difficult after we transition. Shameka, you said no.
Yeah. I absolutely didn't
It was
tell
a
anyone.
hard no at that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
explain.
Because I thought it was my responsibility. Like this, I'm an athlete, and these are things that you deal with as an athlete. So it never crossed my mind to share it. And similar to Georgianne, my mom is usually that sounding board for me. in difficult times, but that never crossed my mind to even share it. I was just like, okay, let me figure out how to overcome this. It was just
Well, the reason it all matters is because there are parents out here that if you guys made it to the top, you're the best of the best. And you're telling everybody that you were going through hardships and you didn't tell your parents. And we now have parents who have kids who are in sports, college student athletes. And I need them to know that your kid could literally be going through depression, could literally be struggling to cope. In my case, my story, at the age of 19, I had it all as a freshman in college. And my sophomore year, I tanked. I didn't have the career that I wasn't going in the direction that I thought I should go. And in my second year, that summer, I got to the worst place imaginable. And that was attempted suicide at the age of 19. And nobody seen it coming. And so you guys are you don't know it, but you're validating. You're showing how this happens. That most kids do not share how they hurt. So I have another question for you, and you can answer or not answer. Was it ever an option to seek professional help for any just conversation?
not at that time. It wasn't until my career was done when I actually went and saw a therapist. And that was even like a major step because there's so much, or they're not anymore now, I think. But at that time, I would say back in 2016, I still think there was a lot of stigma around going to a therapist and seeing someone. So
absolutely, it was.
Yeah, but that's when I finally did it.
You know, when my freshman year in college, I stepped out and I said, for personal reasons. And at that time, you know, people I got crushed. But I knew my truth, and it was because I was, you know, struggling to cope with all the pressure of sports. But I got really crushed, you know, because it was just like, suck it up. What's so hard?
Wow.
Get back out there.
Yep.
Woo.
You know,
Can I add?
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to add something to that. And it's really interesting you say that, Leslie, because for me, I was so mean to myself because people were telling me, you're living the dream. And in my head, I'm like, I hate my life. It started turning into me like hating to go to practice. Like I put so much pressure on myself, but yet I have these people telling me, you're living the life. Oh my gosh, you're so it must be nice to be a pro athlete.
Yes.
It must be nice to be traveling the world and doing this. And I'm like, and then I felt like, who am I to not have like this gratitude for this gift I've been given? And I'm top 5 in the world. I have no right to feel bad for myself and like get it together and like go and run and stop feeling bad for yourself. Stop being a victim, you know? And so, yeah, that's where it all spiraled, I think, for me too.
And you know, outsider looking in, it's just like, what do you have to complain about? You're on top of the world.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's why it is very helpful that, you know, we have this podcast, because kids and other athletes, professional athletes, need to see that it's actually normal. It's actually normal that you're going to go through a level of trauma when things don't work out the way that you plan. So now let's change the subject a little bit. I want to talk about, we talked a little bit about the struggle, you know, what goes on inside once we're competing. I want to talk about envy.
Wow.
Yes, I'm going to throw that out there. Let's get into
She's coming.
Let's talk about the competition of it all. Let's talk about how was that with other athletes? Because I know as a basketball player, it's just team sport. You guys have a lot more individual, like, if you know, how was that? Did you ever have to like fight for your right on the field?
No, I was always good. Like, I don't know if it's like a long jump thing. We kind of try to get along or something. You know, it's real low key. We don't have a gun that we have to respond to. So maybe it's more low key, but a lot of the ladies, they were just really nice. We would help each other with our
So
marks.
nobody talked trash to you?
No, never. Not once.
That
It
is
was
shocking.
always, yeah. And then when I did hurdles, because I did 100 hurdles. So when I was on the line, like you would just see people getting ready for their whatever. But maybe I was in the zone so much I didn't notice. Like if people didn't like me or were trying to intimidate me, I just didn't notice it.
Did anybody try to intimidate you, Georganne?
So it's funny, Meek says that because it is different though. I think with like sprinters, you know, like and like you said,
100%.
Don't get me wrong, like a lot of those women are my friends, love them, but you do have some women that aren't like that. But what's actually interesting is they have a sly way to kind of get in your head, right? So you may have a girl who wins the race. Let's say I took second and she wins, and then after the race she comes up to me and says, oh man, I literally just like rolled my ankle 2 weeks ago and this happened. I can't believe I won. So then you get in your head like, wait, if she rolled her ankle and she was injured and I actually felt pretty good and I lost. And I know it sounds like it's funny, but it's like, it's actually like, it's sick. Like it's terrible because it really gets in your head. And then you start thinking like, my best wasn't even good on that day. And on top of it, she did it while she was injured, right? But it's crazy. They play these games with you, or like before a race, if it's raining, they're like, oh, it's raining. Everyone be careful. It's gonna be slick out there. Then I started to catch on where I'm like, okay, like if people started talking about like negative things about as far as like weather or anything like that, I was like, okay, got you. I'm about to beat you. Okay, got you. And I'd use it to my advantage. I'm like, if you're already talking about what's going wrong or like not for you, you're feeling insecure right now. That's okay. I see that. And I'm going to make sure that gives me the fuel I need to win this race.
So you did a lot of ignoring?
Yeah.
Well, of course. Like you have to learn not to engage, especially when like I'm one of those competitors, like not super talkative, but like I have my friends like, hey, you guys excited? Like we're in Rome or we're in wherever, you know, and they're like, yeah, I'm excited. And, you know, and we'll chit chat, but then you have some ladies that you kind of know too, after you've been on the circuit for so long, you know, which ones they're not genuine. And so when they say stuff, I just don't, I'm like, yeah, I heard you, but I'm not responding. I'm not engaging. No.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, like, as far as like ignoring folks, I just got into my zone and I think people just stayed away because they can kind of tell like you're in your zone, you're ready to go. So like whether it was even practice, you know, when I was in college, it was always a matter of like, okay, it's raining a little bit and I know nobody really wants to do this workout. We never want to do the hard work,out but it doesn't matter because we're going to do the hard workout, you know? So I would rather put my energy into going all out and hammering that workout than to spend energy thinking about how difficult it's going to be. Like that would be so annoying to me. I would just be like, oh my God, shut up, you know, because it's making it harder for us to do what we need to do. And we better hit this time or we got to do it again. So like, let's not do that.
And energy is energy. You get to decide where you use it, whether it's on emotions and like that type of energy and stress, or if you want to use it physically, like, so you had a good point, Shameka. It's like, let's use it physically and to make ourselves better and not waste energy on like all this other talk. That's not necessary.
Completely. Yeah.
Well, Shameka, you had to be in exceptional shape to have a career that expanded 10 years.
Yes, ma'am.
10 years, top 10. So let's talk about your workout regimen. What was that like?
Man. Every day. So like, I should say 5 days a week. On Saturdays, it was more like just a rest and reflect kind of thing. And then on Sundays, kind of similar, just preparing your mind. I loved having the days off because it helped you to kind of like shift yourself and like recenter, for lack of a better word, but kind of just regroup from the full week that you had before. So during those workouts though, whether it was 2 days, we are lifting in the morning, running in the afternoon, those sessions would take a long time because in long jump and in hurdles, they're both very technical events. So it's just repetition over and over and over and over again. Wow. And the repetition is not, you just do it and and just do that same thing over. No, you try to do it as accurate and perfect, or like perfect it as much as you can, because the more perfect you get it in practice, the more perfect you can have it in the race. And, you know, sometimes we say like,
I mean, I seen your pictures.
yeah,
Your body. I was like, damn. I mean, you were so muscular and
man,
so lean.
yeah. We
So
talking.
Still looks like that. I'm like, oh,
Thank you.
Girl,
I'm not as
this
strong.
girl is just chisel. So how did you eat? Was there things that you just
Oh, yeah.
couldn't eat to look
Oh,
like
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I had to cut back. I was a major sugar eater. Okay. So for all the sugar people out there, put it down. You know, like if I could give myself some advice, like earlier in my career, because it didn't hit me until sophomore year in college that I shouldn't have so much sugar. So I remember one day in particular when I was a freshman, I was running and my actual spit, and this might sound crazy, but it tastes like sugar. And I was like, this is probably not good, because see, on campus, you know, when you're a freshman, you go in as a freshman and you like eating everything. We had these things called sugar rushes. So you get 5 king size like candy bars. It'd be a Snickers, it could be a Hershey bar, Starburst, and you get 5 of them. Yes.
You didn't feel it when you jumped?
Listen, I didn't. So I wasn't a person who could gain weight real easy. So I was just eating those things, you know, like it was terrible. But the thing that it affected though was my energy level. So that's where I noticed, and I was like, oh my God, so I remember one time my coach, and this is the first and the last time he ever had to do this, but I came to practice and I had not eaten that morning for breakfast. And practice was around 1:00 that particular day. But the night before, I had all this sugar rush, and I was just tapped out. And so that day we were going to do a hard workout. And everybody knows in the track world, like, when you know it's a hard workout there, you better have eaten well, because you're not going to make it. So he took one look at me and he was like, you look lethargic. And I said, yeah, I don't feel great today, you know, kind of thing. He's like, listen, he set me straight freshman year. Listen, Shameka, if you're going to do these workouts, you need to come with a good body, because otherwise you can't get through these workouts. I will hurt you in these workouts. And I was like, he was like, go home. I said,
you needed that.
Yes,
you needed that.
That was the one and only time I said, I will never show up.
That was your track angel.
I said, I will be ready for the rest of my life. Yes. And I said, oh my God, he sent me home. So I said, I will never be unready ever again in my life.
That's amazing.
And I haven't.
That's hilarious. So Georganne, we're going to talk about your workout routine and fitness, because I know you still are a huge advocate for staying in shape and eating right. But you know what? Let's look at it. Well, go ahead and let's see what you've been doing.
Oh, goodness.
Another surprise.
That I've been through. I wasn't able to go to the 2016 Olympics because of a back injury. Got injured again, had surgery. So for me, I've just been working my butt off. So having to sit with my thoughts and really work on that mental aspect was huge. And I think that's what's going to be my biggest asset coming into Tokyo. It's actually really emotional for me. Thinking of X Endurance and the support is because, you know, there was a year I wasn't sponsored. They stepped up to the plate. They're like, hey, what can we do to support you with products, anything that I needed? And it really showed like the type of people that are behind the products. And that was huge for me. But also the products are the best I've ever seen. X Endurance is going to take care of itself as far as like for my performance. I just got to put in the work and show up and just go out there and be myself. Oh man, that's interesting that you chose that video for so many reasons. You have no idea.
Let's talk about that, girl.
Man, so
let's talk about the workout.
Yeah. So as far as like workouts, my journey has come a long way. I did not grow up. No, like I had friends who were like, oh, my mom packed my lunches and, you know, they had healthy things. Like I don't know one healthy thing I really ate like growing up, you know, like really. But then when I started to learn, like I had this conversation with my coach and he's like, Georganne, you can be the best to ever run the 400-meter hurdles, but I can't want it more than you. Like you have to decide that you want it and make these steps or take these steps into getting there if that's what you want. And I said, that is what I want. So anyways, I learned to like eat healthy. So because like, as you heard in the video, like I got injured right away and it's because I wasn't fueling my body properly. What's the craziest thing? Okay. I'm 5'10", and my freshman year, I probably weighed about 117 pounds. Okay. Less than 120 and I'm 5'10". I had no muscle. I was just skin, bones, and fat. And out of all the sprinters, I had the highest body fat percentage.
Oh, wow.
So like just wrap your head around that, right? I was like the skinniest. And this is through a DEXA scan. DEXA scan is about 99% accurate. So it's not like someone just saying, oh, we took this test. No, very accurate with bone density, everything. So when I found that out, and on top of it, like in the weight room, I had never lifted. And a lot of these women were deadlifting over 200 pounds and I could barely deadlift 100 and like power cleaning. I hated being bad at that. So what I did is I took my weaknesses and I was like, these are going to be my strengths. I'm bad at this one maybe be good at. And at the end, by my senior year, pound for pound, I could probably throw around more weight than most of our throwers.
Wow.
I could power clean 200 pounds, deadlift over 300 pounds, and I have long limbs. It's very hard getting, you know. But my point is like
pounds.
Yeah.
How much did you weigh when you were lifting that?
When I lifted 315, I weighed 125 pounds. So
That's
double my
incredible.
double my body weight. Yeah. And I'm so proud of it because that journey, I worked so hard. I changed my diet. I went to bed like 10 o'clock. My phone was off. I was asleep. You know, Shameka knows. I'm like, I need my sleep. I'm packing my lunches and snacks anywhere I go. I'm hydrating. I have double days. So in the morning, we might be hitting it hard in the weight room and then have plyometrics. We're in there for almost 2 hours. Then I have to come back later that day and do a 2.5-hour session on the track and kill my body. So one thing that I think is important for young athletes to hear too is like on those recovery days, those are just as important as the days that you work really hard on. So when Coach Harvey would say, recover like a pro.
That is a word. Say that one more time, please. That was a word.
Those recovery days. Yeah, those recovery days are just as important as those hard days. And we think that we need to push our bodies so hard in order to have results. But adaptation only happens when you recover. If you don't recover, your body does not adapt. So it's all this circle. And so what I did, so Wednesdays were active recovery, where it would be like, go for like an hour walk or 2-hour walk, right? Or just move your body, but don't get your heart rate up too high. Stretch, do ice tubs, do like anything you can possibly think of, Epsom salt baths. So that's what Wednesday was dedicated to. And then some Wednesdays it was like add in an easy 30-minute run. Sundays were completely off though. So technically you had almost 2 days, 1 day off and 1 day like fully active recovery day. So
let me jump in and say something.
Yeah.
So there's some things that I can't help but laugh inside because there's such stark differences between basketball and track and field because you can't hide in basketball. When you're talking about your recovery days, I think about my recovery days. I would give it my teammates and we'd be crushing beers. And we'd be drinking liquor. And we'd be out partying all night. That's crazy. Right, for the first 30 minutes in practice, we'll sweat it out, and then by the last hour and a half, we'll be good to go. Like you can cut corners all the time in basketball. But track and field, it is what it is. If you're out of shape, if you didn't eat right, if you didn't work out, if you didn't rest, it's going to reflect in your number. And
you see it.
A fraction of a point could cost you the race.
Yeah.
So I just think it's quite contrasting just the sport itself, because so many of my WBA sisters know what I'm talking about. We used to clown. We did. We enjoyed. But you guys, man, such dedication. I got a lot of respect for you.
Thank you.
Okay. One thing, it's funny you say that, Leslie, and it's because like track, like that's where the individual part comes in, right? You can't be 75% one day and then hope that your teammates are able to really kind of pull through for the team, right? It's like you have to be 100%. But on top of that, you could easily get injured. Like, especially running the hurdles, like I could never do it 75%. I run, it's like my race, I take 15 steps in between. I switch at 16 at some point, 22 steps to the first hurdle. And just like long jump is very similar to hurdles, and that it's a rhythm. Like there's a rhythm. So if you're not giving it 100%, you don't hit your steps. Like Meek will go over the line, or she'll like go be way behind the line. So like if you're not hitting them correctly, right? And same with me, I'll hit a hurdle. Those hurdles are heavy. You go down and you're like, So
it
it's
hurts.
it hurts.
So what about you, Shameka? So if you ate a thick crusted pizza, could you jump 21 feet or not?
Oh my goodness. So like I said, freshman year was the worst. I was like in the worst shape of my life. And I was trying to transition to lifting all these heavy weights that I was not used to in high school either. But when I went sophomore year, I finally started using the handbook they gave us about eating. So I had to change my eating habits. So I would have a huge salad every time I went to the lunchroom. And the way I looked at food was more so like, I knew fat wasn't a huge factor for me. I just did not gain a lot of weight. So like what I try to do is pay attention to what kind of nutrients am I taking in. So like if I'm having some kind of bread with something, like is this being a balanced meal itself? Or is this just a little extra something that I really don't need to eat? So I was more focused on like nutrition and how to take in what I needed for where I was going to be.
Yeah, are you still dedicated to that?
Absolutely not. And I should be. No. But, I try to get back on. But no, my eating is I can't say very different, but it's totally, I don't think of it nearly as closely as when I was training. No.
What about you, Georganne?
Yeah, so that food is very interesting. So I've actually always been, even though I was very strict, I had like one thing that my coach really tried to implement was like, you don't need to be perfect. If you can do things right, 85 to 90% of the time, you're doing real good. You're doing better than good. So my thing was, I knew I loved sweets, okay? And I'm not saying I would just down cupcakes every night, but I knew that since I was always eating really great protein and carbs and hydrating, and I was doing all the right things, when I wanted a cupcake, I had a cupcake and I did not regret it. Like, because I'm not going to feel guilty over that either. So, but now this could go into a totally different conversation, but I'm still trying to find a healthy relationship with like body image, and I've dealt with body dysmorphia after retiring. So for me, I eat really healthy because I like the way I feel and how it fuels me. But at the same time, I can be really hard on myself because I have this fear of not looking like an Olympian, right? Or looking athletic, because a part of me is still tied into that identity aspect of like, what's crazy is, okay, so I retired 2 years ago, and recently, someone had said something and got on the conversation how I used to run. They're like, oh, did you make the Olympics? And I was so embarrassed to tell them that I made the Olympics, because then I thought like, oh my gosh, they're going to look at me and say, you don't look like an Olympian. Wow. I know, but isn't that crazy? Like that's literally,
but it's just the point. It's just the point. It's just like, girl, you got it going on. You made it to the Olympics. I mean, there's nobody in your neighborhood went to the Olympics. None of us really know anyone else who went to the Olympics. You did it, and you're hiding.
Yeah.
And so, we're gonna stop that. I'm gonna work on you after the show.
Okay.
But
this is that.
What's interesting to me is people's expectation of you. They don't have nearly the same expectation of themselves. And so once I've like started to recognize that over a period of time, I was like, man, I don't really care what you have to say because I know you're holding me to this standard, but you're not holding yourself nearly to that standard.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, Meek. That's good.
Yeah.
That is
That's
good.
really, that's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's good. Listen,
Yeah.
when you talk about the standard,
Yeah.
so what type of expectations what do you have for yourself? Like after you got done playing and running and doing your sport, like what's the bar now? Because we were athletes, we competed, like we all were driven. There's always a new bar. Where's it at for you at this time?
Mine is twofold. So I'm 40 years old now, 40 for those who might not recognize what I said. So 40, and no lie, I was looking forward to my like later years weight because I've always been like a skinny mini. So I was looking forward to having a little something to move, and it was like when I started seeing some flab, I was like, oh man, like that was new for me because I just wasn't used to it. Like I went from skinny to muscle, and then once I retired, I was starting to see my body change, and I was like, wow, here you go. Like, oh man, I'm a little bit fat, So I really just tried to embrace it because I knew I was not going out there and doing the workouts like I used to. So my body was not going to look like that anymore. And so I think I prepared my mind for it before it came.
But you ventured out now into a singing career.
Yeah.
Is this something is that where your heart is?
So my heart is in both. Like I'm literally wired to do both. So like on a praise and worship team for like 20 years at my church. And then this is all through my athletics. So even when I was going to the Olympic trials, my major in college was music. So all through.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So like they have intertwined back and forth, and they still are. Like I'm in the area of athletics right now. I'm about to audition at my new church for singing,
That's
for the
so
praise
beautiful.
team. Yes, both.
And you know what I think is so fascinating is people love to box us athletes in, right? Yeah. They're like, you're Leslie. I have 3 other sisters, and they're like, oh, you're the ball player.
Yes, they do.
and I'm like, yeah, I play ball, but I actually have many gifts. There's many things that I can do besides play ball. Right. So, but people will box you there. What about you, Georganne? Where's your heart?
Yeah, so I think I'm on this journey of finding that. So for me, I just retired 2 years ago, and I went through a lot these last 2 years. I hit rock bottom last year for sure. For the first time, dealt with a lot of I've dealt with depression on a totally different level than I'd ever experienced it. But that is where I found myself and found that I am so ready to embrace discomfort again. I think I got so comfortable running, and that's why I stayed in it as long as I did.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm ready to embrace discomfort because I have to say it because it's in me. I'm faithful. I'm spiritual, and I believe in God, and I believe in the Word. Because there's so much scripture that talks about, calamity and struggle and hard days. And like it's coming, like I don't know why we think that we're not going to have these days or life is going to be easy for us. And if it's not easy, oh man, I got a tough hand that I was dealt. So it's like I've always had the approach where you have to brace for this stuff because it's going to come. You know why? Because it's going to happen to everybody. And so we have to, in a lot of ways, just kind of get over ourselves, understand that it's okay to struggle. It's okay to fall. It's okay to fail. But what makes us different, and Georganne, oh my God, girl, you got a testimony here. Listen. Yeah. What makes us great is that we don't stay there. That's what makes us different.
Yeah.
We didn't make every team. We got cut sometimes. But we don't stay there. We just keep defining our image. We just keep recreating the new path, the new journey. So I'm actually excited for your future because the testimony, the fact that you can admit, I went through depression, that's a good thing. Because so many people that can listen to this, they're going to say, what? She did? And she had it all? Was an Olympian? Yeah. It's okay for me to say it. As an athlete, just a regular individual. So with that said, I do believe that we are breaking barriers. We're going to tear those walls down, the taboo that is behind, you know, what it's like to feel some form of depression. It's okay because you know what? We're not going to stay there.
Yeah.
We're not going to stay there.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I'll say this about depression because I found myself there too, and I got stuck. I was stuck there for some years, and my family just didn't even know what was going on with me because I didn't know what was going on with me. Like I didn't even know it was depression. Like when I finally realized it, it was probably like 2 years later. All I know is I felt like I had a chip on my shoulder with everything. I was just never happy, and I was irritable, offended about everything. Like, don't tell me nothing. I'm offended, you know, like, and so I remember one day I said, Lord, what is wrong with me? I said, you know what? I'm the problem. I'm the problem. I know I am, because why is everybody offending me? I must be the problem, because there's no way I can say all those people are the problem when I'm the common denominator. So I was in church that day and I was like, I'm going to get prayer. And my pastor's wife prayed for me a day, and she gave me this book called Managing Your Emotions by Joyce Meyer. And that was a fantastic book that just helped me to start getting out of that. That's the same year I started getting therapy as well. And little did I know, when track was over for me, it was a huge disappointment. And it was because I didn't realize my season was shifting. And when I say season, I don't mean track season, but I just mean life season of track was over. And the thing that I didn't do was recognize that it was shifted. All I know is I was so wired that when October came, it was time to train. And that particular year, I had no excitement. And I was like, that's weird. I'm always like, let's go. It's a new year. And that year I was like, Dad, I'm just not excited. And I don't know why. But then I tried to train anyway. It was the worst thing ever. And 2016 which was an Olympic year. It turned out horrible, which put me in a place of depression, disappointment. And that's when I got stuck after that 2 years, just trying to figure out life.
When you look across your screen right now, it says where the conversation about trauma, faith, hope, and mental wellness within sports collide. Let me say this. As a former pro athlete, and I'm listening to your story, and everybody's hearing this, and it's like, it's feeding into my belief system, because I know that let's say if Michael Jordan was depressed, do we really think Michael Jordan is just going to walk into a clinic that says, you know, for therapists, let me get this help because I really feel like I'm going through a struggle? Most pro athletes just don't, because you know, whether it's the embarrassment or feeling ashamed, or we don't want people to know, or these days we live in a social media era. We don't want people to find out that we're going through something. And so I believe that this podcast is going to continue to give athletes and others that are struggling to cope. We have to share a story. Yeah. They may not walk in the clinic. They may not call and get professional help. But when they start hearing our testimony and they're listening to these two amazing women say, I went through it still. Sometimes I still go through it. But guess what? I keep fighting. I keep going. I believe what you guys have spoken on today is impacting lives. And, you know, I'm just proud to be able to bring it to our audience and bring it to them live today. So, you know, we're going to wrap it up. But I would like to thank both of you for being here today. But I cannot close without hearing from both of you. I want you to tell us the feeling that you felt. When did you feel like you made it in sports? And I want you to narrate what that felt like to give other athletes and people hope.
Okay, so I'll go first since I have it kind of at the top
When
of my
you
mind.
made it, and how did you know you made it? When was that moment? And explain.
Okay, so interestingly enough, the video that you posted, that you shared, was the year that in particularly that race, I felt like I made it. And what's really interesting about that is that was actually one of the hardest. I was coming off one of the hardest moments of my career. I had just been dropped by a very big sponsor, who, they decided they wanted to go with someone younger, whatever. So that's my income. That's my livelihood. Nothing, right? I felt like, how was I supposed to pay my bills? Who am I? They don't think I'm worthy. It just went into a vicious circle. And then I had a small supplement company they're just really great people. They're like, we'd like to buy you some clothes and like have you wear a uniform, and we'll try to pay you as much as we can. But it was just the support that I felt from them. And because I felt like I had gone back to like literally feeling like I had nothing, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I felt this sense of like surrendering. I was like, you know what, God, I don't know your plan. I don't know why this is happening to me. I don't need to understand right now. I'm just going to trust you. And it brought me back to having fun with track. It brought me back to a place where I did not have anxiety, which is very rare because I always had like anxiety going into races, and I felt excited. And that is why I did so well, especially after one of those hurdles was not really good, but I still won. And I still I just had the most incredible season. I ran the fastest time in the history, of me running the 400 hurdles. That went down as like number 7 all-time fastest 400 hurdle time in the history of the event. Like, my point is like when I decided to like take the pressure off, be patient with myself, and have fun, the results came. And before I was searching and fighting for results, but really I was like, why did I start track? Where did it start? And it was started with that passion and that love for it, that community. And that all came full circle that year for me.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
The Olympics, though. What about the Olympics? Did you feel like you made it when you was on the Olympic stage? I just got to hear that Olympic moment. How did that feel?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. In another sense, yes. That was my junior year of college. I had an absolute blast. I made it all the way to the final, placed 5th, which now is 4th place because the Russian got banned. So actually I took 4th place. Yes. It was, because in that moment I realized I'm not representing myself anymore. I'm representing the United States of America. I'm representing my family. I'm representing the University of Arizona. I'm representing, I will never forget walking to that stadium. I see this little boy and his dad, and they're wearing USA, and they're looking at me, and his eyes are watering, and he's like, USA, and he's chanting to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these are the people I'm representing, wow, it's hard to explain the feeling that the Olympics and being on that stage brings you. It's a sense of community too, walking the opening ceremonies and you're realizing oh, we're all the same. We're the same. We've worked so hard to get here, and it was indescribable for sure.
That was so great. I needed to know. I needed to hear that, but I needed to know. Personally, I wanted to know. I never witnessed. So thank you. Thank you, Georganne. Yeah. You're an incredible woman. Incredible in your sport. And I know that this is just the beginning for you. Your ladder is going to continue to be even greater than your past. Yeah. All right, Shameka, let's hear it. Let's hear when you knew you made it.
I knew I made it when I finally went to Pan American Games in 2011. That's when I got my silver medal for the long jump. And that was big because I was not supposed to go to that event. Someone else was slated to go in my what before me. And so everyone was kind of like, the athletes were kind of like him-hawing about going. And so I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter to the meet manager for the USA side, and I said, I want to go and I want to represent my country. I had never done that kind of thing before. That was so
Wow.
out of my I was like too nervous to do that kind of stuff. So this was just like way over my head to try and do that. But I wrote him that letter. When he wrote me back and said yes, I was floored. I was like, oh my God, I'm going, So I was super excited. And when I went, my coach wasn't able to go, but the conditions of my training at that time were different. So now I had a full-time job. I was a full-time coach at Temple University, and the head coach was my coach now. So I wasn't under my college coach anymore. But we had been training hard, and I told him what I was going to do. And I was like, I'm nervous, And so he was like, Meek, you can do it. He was like, Faith, you got faith, Meek. Come on, you could do it. And I was like, okay. So when I got that and I actually went, and he and I would try to communicate just a little bit while I was there, because it was in Mexico and he was back here at home. And then I was getting ready like the days before, and you kind of you don't really know how the day is going to go when it's time to compete. But I was like nervous, and I was doing my little workout stuff. And then one of the coaches, because they send coaches with us to kind of like guide us, and I was doing a little piece of a workout, and it was like, what's that called? And I was like, I don't even remember the name, but I'm out there preparing. And then I remember taking a deep breath when I finally got to my second to last jump. And that's when I hit 22 feet. And that's the furthest I've ever jumped in my life. So it beat what I did in college. And it was like a lifetime best for me. And it was a whole different atmosphere, being a full-time I'm working full-time. And yet I'm a full-time track and field athlete. And just to have that moment of whoa, I finally passed 22 feet. This is incredible. And I got a silver medal, whoa,
Let's go
on a big stage.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's when I felt like I made it.
I'm gonna be walking around right now with my silver medal on.
Yeah.
I'll be like, if I had gold or something, I'll be like, hey, how y'all doing? Wait a minute, where we going tonight? What's going on?
Oh, this
thing right here.
Who, me?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Man, let me tell you, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, Shameka. I mean, you're just so gifted. And I love your passion about your faith. And I'm so grateful that you have come on the show and just been open about your struggles. And, this singing, there's just still so more that is to be discovered, that can still blow up at any time. And so I'm thrilled that you came on today. I love your testimony, and I know that God is not through with you yet.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, ladies. So thank you for tuning in to the Hush No More podcast. And I'm just going to keep doing it, y'all. This is purpose-driven work for me. Because of my struggles, because of my difficulties, because of the fact that I'm blessed to be here. I'm lucky to be here. If it had not been for the Lord on my side, I would not be here. His grace and his mercy has been sufficient for me. And so because of that, to whom much is given, I do believe much is required. And so this is me giving a platform to other athletes and other entertainers, people who can stand alongside me and say, you're not alone. I went through it too. But at the end of the day, if you're on the show, guess what? We're survivors. So I appreciate everybody for coming on. Appreciate the audience for listening. Until next Sunday, God bless. Well, God bless throughout.
Bye. Thank you.